P.O.P podcast, let's go. The P.O.P podcast, let's go. The P.O.P podcast starts now.
Hello and welcome to the P.O.P podcast, where we explore the latest innovations and strategies in orthodontics and dentistry. I'm your host, Jason Sirotin, co-founder of the retail health marketing company Brain Bytes Creative. My co-host, Scott Haley, is the managing partner for P.O.P, running day-to-day operations for the group, and he is also a consultant and senior advisor at True North Practice Transitions. Today we have two special guests, Mr. Scott Hansen, the founder and CEO of Lead Sigma, and Miss Caroline Hosey. Caroline's like one of my really good friends. Caroline Hosey from Brain Bytes Creative, who is a strong advocate for Lead Sigma and frequently recommends it to her clients. Today, we'll dive into the importance of managing leads effectively, the role of digital marketing in orthodontic practices, and how these tools can drive exceptional patient care and practice growth. So let's get started. Let's start by welcoming Mr. Scott Hansen. Scott, tell us your story and about your product.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. So Lead Sigma got started. I feel like my career, I've kind of lucked from one thing into another. I started my career managing my family's orthodontic practice here in Kansas City. And the practice had been flat for about 10 years. And when I started, I basically just spent a couple months learning. And, we had it was an awesome practice. The patients loved coming. My mom was the orthodontist. They loved coming to the practice. They loved her. Very typical for many of the awesome orthodontic practices that exist around the country. But we really lacked any sort of marketing or sales process. And that was apparent to me. I've just always loved sales and hustling stuff as I was growing up. And so the first thing that I did when I started managing the team was put some organization around that process. So defining what are the most critical junctures from the time a patient learns about us to the time they sign a contract, and what metrics should we be measuring, and how could we squeeze more juice out of that process? For instance, is like the fortunate part about orthodontic practices is that it's very linear. The sales process is very linear. We got to get people to learn about us. And then when they inquire, they could inquire by calling us, filling out a form, starting online scheduling, doing a virtual consult. But there's only a few ways that they can inquire about treatment or express their interest. How can we get as many of those people to a scheduled appointment? And from a scheduled appointment, how do we get as many of those people possible to show up? And from the people that show up, how do we get as many of those people to same day start? And if we can't get them to same day start, at least sign a contract or schedule a start for the future. That's the process. And then after that, it's managing the unscheduled production that you have in OBS and recall or growth, which is also fairly simple. And so we just organized that process, and we ended up tripling the size of the practice in a few years. And we ended up selling it to an OSO. And my mom is fortunately retired, and she's a full-time grandma, and which is I benefit greatly from because I've got two little boys. But right around the same time we transitioned the practice, we had started using online chat in our office, and we had trained internal reps to help us with that. And it was working tremendously well for us. And I called up a few other doctors and I said, hey, this online chat thing's working for us. If you want to pay me, the guy's going to answer all the same questions. So I can just manage it for all of us. And long story short, over 2.5 years, we grew that business to serve about 1,500 orthodontic practices and a few thousand businesses in other verticals with about 150 reps. And I'm sorry for the long-winded story, but it really tees up why Lead Sigma is so important. Having the experience of helping drive leads or convert leads for all of these businesses gave me really unique insight into how those leads are managed after we pass them to the client. And in our office, our online chat, driving leads, converting them worked really well. And for some of the clients that we signed up, many of the clients that we signed up, they really struggled with what happens after we have someone who has inquired about treatment. And that's really the problem that Lead Sigma solves. So after I sold professional chats or ortho chats in 2018, I traveled for a year and got back and got to work on Lead Sigma.
And it's a very impressive tool. And that's why I have Caroline from Brain Bytes Creative here today. Caroline has helped grow the orthodontic and dentistry arm of Brain Bytes and has become a strong advocate for Lead Sigma. Caroline, first of all, tell us, what you do at Brain Bytes, what you do for clients, and then quickly get into how Lead Sigma is helping the clients at Brain Bytes Creative.
Yeah, so I am the head of business development at Brain Bytes Creative. I got my start here in account management, so I'm very familiar with the day-to-day and working with the doctors directly, office managers, TCs. I've done it all, like seen all the different kind of aspects of the practice. But on the business development side, my job is to identify what problems is a practice trying to solve. Are they looking for more brand visibility? Are they looking to drive more patient starts? And then what we do is we complete what we call an authority assessment, where we look at their keyword rankings, their reviews, social media, and website. We do a full comprehensive analysis and then formulate goals for that practice. And then from there, they get to work with our amazing team and account managers to put it all into action. But with that, there's always like this gap of where doctors want to know, are you producing an ROI? They want to understand what value does Brain Bytes actually bring to the table. And while I think that Brain Bytes has very extensive reporting, we look at, we track conversions from click to call. We look at form submissions on websites. We're able to deliver even call tracking metrics to kind of be able to record and listen to calls. It still had holes in the data to be able to understand what happens to the lead after they come into the practice. So one of the biggest values that Lead Sigma has brought us is that we're actually able to track it all the way to the start. So when I know that a lead has been won, I can actually measure the value of that lead and show my clients the actual ROI that we're bringing to the table. So, and the thing is occasionally marketing has, sometimes we're experimenting with something and it doesn't always work. The other great thing about this tool is it allows us to have transparent conversations. So if something's not working, we don't have to dig and dig and dig and dig. We have something that can seamlessly and automatically let us know, hey, we might need to kind of change. We're seeing maybe a low quality leads, or maybe we're getting leads from a zip code that doesn't want to drive to a practice, or just something. And we can identify the problem so much sooner. So we're able to optimize our campaigns to drive better results. And having that data at our fingertips makes us smarter, makes us more efficient, and we're able to grow our campaigns at a lot faster rate than we were before we had Lead Sigma.
And that's important. I think Scott Haley, who is the managing partner of P.O.P, you looked at Lead Sigma as a partner because you recognized that this was something that docs needed to have access to. Why did you think
Yeah, quick chime in here. I mean, the first time I heard Scott was on a different podcast, at which point I was like, what this guy is saying was ringing a lot of bells for me, right? Like the sales and the leads. But I think the important thing for us at P.O.P is, our goal for our doctors is to provide them the services that they would get if they were part of an OSO or a DSO. And these are some of the sophisticated things, like with Lead Sigma, with Brain Bytes, that you would get if you sold your practice to a OSO, let's be honest. So let's make sure that our doctors have access to those types of things in a private practice setting. Our goal is, we want to help doctors lower their clinical supplies costs. But the other thing we need to do, besides the network effect of the group, is be able to help our doctors grow their practices. And that's where Lead Sigma comes in. It resonated clearly to me, as we like to say, right as rain. It just made so much sense what the services were doing. So we're excited to have our doctors partner with Scott and Lead Sigma for sure.
What is the importance, Scott Hansen, of managing leads? Why, and for people who aren't, what kind of impact are they going to feel once they have a system like yours?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it goes back to what Caroline was saying about centralizing the um, the motivation of all of us around the same thing. And that is, we want to put money into the process and get a lot more money out than we did before. And the way it works with a lot of marketing for many people in the industry is they put money into marketing and they have no idea how much money they got out. And you can put together fancy reports that say you got X number of clicks, you got X number of impressions, X number of views, but everyone listening knows that that doesn't matter. What matters is how many people show up, butt in seat, and start treatment. And that's really why we focused on all of those metrics after the marketing has done its job of bringing those people in. Because you can imagine if you generate 100 leads for patients and 80 of them book appointments as opposed to 60 of them booking appointments, the return on that spend for marketing is dramatically different. And that's really why we focused on each one of those metrics after the fact in our practice. And in our practice, we had put together something that resembled Lead Sigma, but it was a bunch of different tools all tied together. But if we can affect each one of those metrics, even in a small way, it produces an exponential outcome because each step affects the step before. And I think it would probably be appropriate to talk about like how Lead Sigma works in practice, like why it matters. So the way Lead Sigma works, we sell two core products. The first is what we call our new patient manager software. It connects to all of the inbound lead sources. And so we work with Caroline and her team to make sure that all of the inbound lead sources, any place where a patient could inquire, is hooked directly into Lead Sigma. When a lead gets generated, we have an automation engine that does three things. The first thing is it makes sure that all of the leads are followed up with immediately. And that is really important. The speed component of that is really important. The faster we are to get a hold of these new patients, the more likely we are to have a conversation and actually book them an appointment. The second thing that it does is it automates on all three channels. So instead of just making a phone call or just sending a text message, it's helping you do all three at one time. So phone call, text message, and email. And the automation engine continues using those three channels into the future. And then the third main thing that it helps with is for practices that are transitioning onto Lead Sigma, typically they're transitioning from a spreadsheet or pen and paper, tracking the leads in some other way. You can imagine that if you had a lead that inquired a month ago, it's really hard to organize the process of following up with that person today because you had another one that you generated today or another one from yesterday. Those are obviously going to get higher priority than the one you generated a month ago. But the one that you generated a month ago still has a tremendous amount of value for the practice, but it's hard to organize all of that follow-up process. And when it's in our Lead Sigma sequences and in the automations, it continues to be nurtured over time. And so over time, you get this compounding effect of the return of all of the leads that you've generated because we continue nurturing those leads automatically into the future. And so more people over time get booked. I'll just say the second core product that we offer is called Copilot AI. And Copilot, the reason why Copilot exists, and this is why I was saying I kind of lucked from one thing into another. We ended up building native call tracking into our platform so that we could track all the inbound calls for all of our clients. And when we did that, we started getting connected to more of our clients' phone systems and their call volumes and recordings and all that stuff. And we very quickly realized that our average client, which is, my hypothesis is that our clients are more aggressive in terms of sales and understand this process more than others. Still, those clients were missing 25% of their phone calls. And when that just kind of gave me heart palpitations. And because an average practice, let's say they get 600 inbound phone calls over the course of a month, missing 25% of those phone calls is about $35,000 or $40,000 of missed production every single month. And so we were like, okay, went back to the drawing board. How do we fix this problem? And that problem exists in virtually every practice. And with the growth of AI over the last 2 years, and just kind of how everything kind of came together, right place, right time. And we have a really talented team of developers, and we built a generative AI product that has dynamic conversations with patients, schedules them for appointments, or collects their information. And so instead of those 25% of calls going to a voicemail, now those 25% of calls are going to an agent or a new patient concierge that is having a dynamic conversation with those patients and booking appointments or collecting their information.
Very
Perfect.
cool. Caroline, what's the difference, do you think, between the client situation with a client who has Lead Sigma and a client who doesn't? Are you better able to effectively, is their marketing spend more efficient because they have it?
Absolutely. What I've been able to see is that before they weren't really capitalizing on all the leads that we were bringing in. Like a lot of leads were falling through the cracks, kind of as Scott said. Like when you have that one that maybe needs a dental hygiene visit, for example, before they maybe can come to the practice, or maybe the appointment times didn't work for them and they need to wait till school's out. There's a lot of different circumstances. What I've noticed is that previously those leads were falling through the cracks, but as you kind of look into the metrics to kind of see where the leads were won and what's happening kind of in the back end, we're seeing a lot more actually be able to book. And it's been really cool to watch the rate at which a lot of those have improved.
That's
Yeah,
really
and I'll
cool.
add too, Caroline mentioned like seeing the leads that are actually booked. And there's as much value in seeing the leads that don't book and why.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the data that the marketing teams can use to actually refine the targeting, refine the the copy of the ads, all of the things that make a really big difference when you're pouring money into marketing. You want that marketing dollar to be as efficient as possible. And when you know what's working and you know what's not working, you can fix what's not working, or you can optimize what's not working as well as it could.
So, hey Scott, when we look at these offices, obviously the doctor's making the ultimate decision if they're going to go with Lead Sigma, but like, who are the team members that you're generally the main users of the product in the practice?
Yeah, when we start, typically the main users of the practice are a front office coordinator or new patient coordinator. Kind of depends on the size of the office. To give you an idea of scale, we serve a number of owner operator doctors, and then we also serve up to like 300 Smile Docs locations. And basically everything in between. So some of those offices have dedicated new patient coordinators or digital coordinators. Most offices, though, have the new patient coordinator is responsible for this sales motion of getting new patients into the office. And so those are typically the people that we start with. We start to serve. And Lead Sigma can also be used really effectively to follow up with pending patients and OBS and recall patients. And so typically what happens is we will launch, we're serving the front office coordinator, and then we move to start serving the treatment coordinators and incorporating that into the flow.
Excellent.
Very cool. If you are interested in getting a AI powered practice growth, you need to go right now to leadsigma.com and fill out the contact form, book a demo, and see it in action, because I think seeing is believing on this. When you see all the bells and whistles and you can see why so many trusted brands are using it, I think you're going to be really impressed, and you'll see why Brain Bytes and our clients are gravitating towards this platform. I want to thank Mr. Scott Hansen for being here today. Thank you, Scott. If people want to get in touch with you or they have a question directly to you, is there a way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. My email is really easy. It's Scott@Lead Sigma. Also, that book a demo link goes directly onto my calendar. I like doing all the product demos and talking to clients. So, yeah, either way is great.
That's incredible. And Caroline, how can people get in touch with you at Brain Bytes Creative to get that assessment you were talking about?
Yeah, so my email is also Caroline at brainbytescreative.com. You can reach out to me directly. And if you end up going to the Brain Bytes website and using our contact, that also goes directly to me as well. So I'm your girl for your consultations, and I'll show you a lot of great things about your practice.
And if you're interested in learning more about POP, you're going to go to pop-ortho.com and you're going to talk to Mr. Scott Haley. Scott, why should people give you a call about POP?
That's a
Why is it better than an OSO?
well, I would say the most enticing thing about being a part of POP is that what we're trying to build here is that you can be a private practice owner, and we're trying to build out the services and all the benefits that you would probably get if you were part of a larger group. We've got a great network of doctors sharing best practices. I'm excited that our newest vendor partner with POP is Lead Sigma. So if you are a POP member, this is going to go directly out to all of our good doctors. You can go to our website and after you log in, you can see some more information and about Lead Sigma, and then contact Scott through our portal as well. So thanks for joining the group, Scott. We're excited to have you.
Yes, thank you. I'm really excited to work with a lot more of the teams.
That's all for today's episode of the POP Podcast. A big thank you to Scott Hansen from Lead Sigma, Caroline Hosey from Brain Bytes Creative for joining and sharing their valuable insights on lead management and digital marketing. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Stay tuned for more conversations with industry leaders and experts. And until next time, continue pushing the boundaries of orthodontic and dental care. Interested in learning more about POP? Go to poportho.com. We'll see you next time.
P.O.P. podcast. Let's go.